It all started with a dream, a simple one. I wanted to build a cozy little tiny house where I could live peacefully off the grid, with fewer bills and more freedom. I had the land, the plans, and the excitement. But what I didn't expect was that my biggest challenge wouldn't be construction, it would be my HOA. Or more specifically, Karen *. From the very first day, she made it her personal mission to shut me down. Complaints about property values, endless letters, surprise inspections, you name it. All because my house didn't fit into her picture-perfect neighborhood. At first, I tried to reason with her. I showed her the layout, the safety standards, even the eco-friendly benefits. But none of it mattered. She was set on banning my tiny house completely. That's when something clicked in me. If a tiny house was a problem, what would she do if I built a giant one? So I changed my game plan. Instead of downsizing, I went big, really big. The kind of big that made her jaw drop and the HOA scramble for their rulebook. And let's just say, I found a few loopholes they definitely didn't see coming. This is a story about standing your ground, thinking outside the box, and turning frustration into creativity. But trust me, things didn't go as smoothly as I hoped. What happened next? Let's just say, Karen wasn't done yet, and neither was I. Before all the drama started, I had no idea how strict an HOA could be. I'd heard stories, sure, but I never thought I'd end up in one of those battles myself. The neighborhood looked peaceful when I bought the land. Trees, quiet roads, friendly smiles. But what I didn't know was that Karen had been on the HOA board for years, and she treated the place like her personal kingdom. From paint colors to mailbox height, she had rules for everything. So when I rolled in with my tiny house plans and a vision of minimalist living, it was like I had declared war. She showed up the same day, had parked the foundation trailer. Clipboard in hand, disapproving look on her face, already quoting some rule I'd supposedly broken. "This is not in line with community standards," she said, like she was reading from a script. I hadn't even set up the frame yet. That's when I realized this wasn't just about a tiny house. It was about control. I dug into the HOA bylaws, trying to find some breathing room. And sure enough, there were plenty of gray areas. No mention of square footage minimums for certain lots, just vague language about visual harmony. That gave me an idea. What if I stayed within the technical rules, but flipped the concept completely? As I started designing the giant house, Karen started ramping things up. Noise complaints, parking issues, even trying to get my permits pulled. And then something even weirder happened. One morning, just as I was finalizing the layout for the new giant house, I noticed a drone hovering over my lot. At first, I thought it was some nosy neighbor curious about the construction, but later I found out it belonged to Karen. She was literally spying on my progress, trying to catch anything she could report. That's when I realized this wasn't just about rules anymore, it was personal. She wasn't just protecting HOA standards, she was on a mission to run me out completely. I started documenting everything, every letter, every visit, even the drone footage. I knew I had to be smart. I met with a few other neighbors, and to my surprise, not everyone agreed with Karen. One guy, Dave, said she'd made him repaint his fence 3 times in one summer. Another couple had to fight just to install solar panels. It started to look like I wasn't alone in this. There was a quiet resistance growing, and my project was becoming the center of it. Meanwhile, the design for the big house was coming together. Massive glass walls, oaken beams, everything modern but still within every regulation. I wanted it to be bold, something that screamed freedom while staying perfectly legal. But every time a truck showed up to deliver materials, Karen was right there with her clipboard, snapping photos and filing complaints. Then came the anonymous letters. Notes slid under my door, telling me to stop building, warning me I was disrupting the order. That's when things really started to feel off. The warnings didn't stop. In fact, they started showing up more often, taped to my fence, stuffed in my mailbox, even stuck under my windshield wipers. Most were typed, No names, just bold phrases like, "You're ruining this community," or "Stop now, before it gets worse." It was creepy. And the weird part, the HOA denied knowing anything about them. Of course they did. But something in Karen's eyes every time I passed her said otherwise. By then, the frame of the giant house was up, and it was turning heads. People driving by would slow down, some nodding in support, others just confused by how this massive modern structure was popping up in a neighborhood full of cookie-cutter homes. Karen's complaints were non-stop: noise violations, unsafe work zones, even claiming the house was an eyesore. But everything was up to code. I had triple-checked every guideline. What she didn't know was, I had help. A friend of mine is an architect and helped me design every inch within the legal limits, just to make sure she couldn't tear it down. Still, the tension kept building. One night, I caught someone walking through the construction site with a flashlight. By the time I got outside, they were gone. No damage, just muddy footprints, and a sense that this wasn't just about rules anymore. It was becoming something bigger. I installed cameras the next day. Then, right when the walls were going up and the final inspection was around the corner, I got a certified letter. Not from Karen, from the city. And what it said nearly stopped the whole project cold. The letter from the city wasn't what I expected. It wasn't a stop work order, but it might as well have been. It said a formal complaint had been filed, not about the construction itself, but about zoning violations. According to the letter, someone had reported that my land was no longer eligible for residential development of this scale. The strange thing, that zoning hadn't changed in over a decade. I called the city office, confused, and after some digging, the clerk told me the complaint had been flagged for urgent review by a member of the HOA board. I didn't even have to ask who it was. Now, this was more than just an annoying neighbor. It was sabotage. Karen had somehow gotten the city involved, trying to shut me down through red tape instead of rule books. I started to wonder how far she was willing to go. My permits were now under review, and if they were pulled, I'd lose thousands, maybe more. While I scrambled to gather paperwork and emails, something else came to light. A neighbor, someone who used to stay quiet, dropped by and mentioned there'd been a secret HOA meeting a few weeks ago. No notice, no invite, just a few board members and Karen. The agenda: preserving the character of the neighborhood. I wasn't even on the list to speak. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just about one house. Karen was trying to use my project as an example to tighten control over the whole neighborhood. And then, just as I was preparing to fight the zoning claim, a new letter arrived. This one wasn't from the city or the HOA. It was from a lawyer. And what it said took everything to a whole new level. The lawyer's letter was a cease and desist, claiming I was in violation of neighborhood design restrictions and threatening legal action if I didn't halt construction immediately. At first, I panicked. It felt like everything was crumbling just as I was nearing the finish line. But then I noticed something strange. The letter was dated weeks before the zoning complaint was even filed. That meant this wasn't some spontaneous legal reaction. It was part of a plan. Karen had been preparing this all along, working every angle, HOA, city, and now legal pressure, to shut me down completely. I handed the letter to my attorney, who immediately noticed some inconsistencies. For one, the HOA's own charter didn't support the claims they were making. Even more interesting, the lawyer who sent it had ties to Karen's husband's firm. It wasn't official HOA legal counsel, it was personal. That turned everything around. Armed with this, my attorney filed a formal complaint against the HOA board for abuse of authority. At the same time, we provided the city with evidence of the unchanged zoning laws, signed permits, and even emails showing clear approval from inspectors. Within days, the city cleared me. The legal threat fell apart just as fast. Turns out, they were bluffing. Construction resumed, and by the time the walls were finished, neighbors started coming by, not with complaints, but support. Even a few who once sided with Karen admitted they were tired of the constant control. But here's the twist. Right before the final inspection, I got one more visit. Not from Karen, from a real estate developer. He'd seen the house going up, heard about the HOA drama, and offered to buy the property for more than double what I put into it. That's when I realized, maybe Karen did me a favor after all. At first, I didn't know what to say to the developer. After everything I'd been through, Karen, the HOA drama, the letters, the legal threats, I'd finally built something that wasn't just a house, but a symbol of standing up for myself. It felt personal, but the offer was real, and it came with something I hadn't felt in months: choice. I didn't have to sell, but I could. That freedom alone was worth everything I'd been fighting for.